Check 1 2. Check 1 2. What a beautiful day here in North Texas. What a beautiful day because we have college football coming up very shortly, just solely for the fact of it's a Thursday. It's the pre-Friday. It's the best day of the weekend. Whoa. Arguably the best day of the week. Thursdays I love. Fridays obviously reign supreme on the work week. Hope you are having a good day. If anything, if you're having a bad day, take a break. Talk some ball with us. That's all we do is we talk ball around here. So kick back, relax, grab a drink, do whatever you may please on this beautiful Thursday. Man, do we have a loaded show for you today. Absolutely loaded. I don't know what else to call it. We're not even going to be able to get to every single game that we're going to want to talk about today. As unfortunate as it is, games like USF versus North Texas, Arkansas and Tennessee, Kansas and Texas Tech, South Carolina and LSU, even Georgia and Auburn's teetering on potential preview predictions, ASU versus Utah, and even Nebraska at Maryland. We may try to get to those, but we are going to be talking about Texas A&M and Florida, Missouri and Alabama, Oregon and Indiana, Michigan and USC. If it is a weekend for apple picking, you are in the wrong sport. It is not the weekend for apple picking. It's not the weekend for fall weddings whatsoever. But let's crack our necks. Let's grab something to drink and let's lock in, folks. Do you think you have Billy Napier figured out? Because each week that passes by, I somehow get more and more confused on what this Florida program is. Now, Florida is traveling to College Station, Texas to face off against the number 5 team in the country, the Texas A&M Aggies. Now, you may see the, I believe, towel behind me, even the pennant to the right of me. Texas A&M is in my background. And if it is your first time seeing the show, I promise you, I'm going to give you the unbiased perspective. And honestly, when doing this preview, it is quite difficult to talk about Florida and to talk about Texas A&M. Primarily with Florida, though, what do you think you know about Florida? What are you confident in? Because you have the one-game sample size of them against Texas and them looking dominant, making Arch Manning continue looking like one of the worst quarterbacks in the Power 4, which honestly is not his fault. And truthfully, we need to have a conversation about that for another time. But at the end of the day, Florida's defense has looked fantastic. I think that is the one thing we can answer and say we know about Florida is the defense is going to be damn good. And that's a pretty great thing to have. If you're going to have anything in your favor, have a damn good defense, a veteran defense at that. If you look up the depth chart and just look at the 2-man there, you're going to see a lot of SR seniors. You're going to see a RS junior, redshirt juniors. You're going to just see a lot of veteran experience that are within this defense. And I think it's going to be the core of this team. What we thought originally was going to be DJ Lagway with the talent that he is. It's going to be more of a run-first, defensive-minded program. That's what's going to be their best path for success. But what do we know about Texas A&M? We know Texas A&M can beat you in a multitude of different ways, something that previous iterations of Texas A&M football really didn't have. Very similar to what we just talked about with Florida, they were a ground and pound. You need to play good defense. That's how you were going to win, and it was the only way that Texas A&M was going to win football games. But in 2025, it's a little bit different. I just posted a 15-minute video breaking down the core of their offensive philosophy. It's going to be a lot of 12 personnel. And if you're new to football, it's 1 running back, 2 tight ends. And this is predominantly just because they want to be able to have the threat of running the football while you have Casey Concepcion and Mario Craver out wide, who who are threats in their own right in terms of their verticality and ability to separate from corners. And when you have to pick and choose your battles between either allocating between 7 blockers in the rushing attack or potentially focusing on 2 of the major weapons, some of the best weapons in the entire SEC in Casey and Craver. So we have an A&M team that can beat you in a rock fight. They did that against Auburn. This is an A&M team that can go on the road and put up 40. They can win a shootout. They did that against Notre Dame. And just this past weekend against Mississippi State, they can lean on you until you break, which is a way of winning that people don't talk about enough, but it has to be in your arsenal. I think Mike Elko put it best in the postgame where he said, this is SEC football. Sometimes they're going to be eye for an eye in terms of their physicality. Mississippi State was like that when we were talking about the first couple of quarters. That's why I believe it was 7-3 for majority of the game, but it gets to a breaking point and you're not going to be the team that breaks. Now we've seen with Florida, the one way that they can win a football game is going to be running the ball with Jaden Ball. Who would have thought giving your best player on offense the ball is going to win you games? Now, Jaden Ball is fantastic. I said it in my preview video for Florida and Texas. My biggest question was, were they going to see the fact that they could run the ball? Because statistically, it looked like they could, but they refused to give him the damn rock. And then they go play Texas. They give him the rock. They win the game. Now, when comparing the two matchups here, I have a couple of key factors. Number one, who's going to win the third down battle? I know it's stereotypical when talking about a football preview, but specifically for this game, I think it's more important than ever. Florida was not a good third down team on offense up until they played Texas. Now, is that a one-night special, or is that a trend that we're going to see for the rest of the season? Because we've seen we've seen Florida flip the script mid-season. We saw it last year. Now, is this just going to be a one-off back against the wall? We were at home. We were comfortable. We changed our philosophy. It's going to work, and we can hit third downs because Texas A&M, on the other hand, 2 of 23 in stopping third downs, 4% rate in SEC play for Texas A&M's defense to get you off the field. They're damn good at it. They've been incredible at it. We could talk about the fact that it's Auburn. We could talk about the fact that it's Mississippi State, and understandably so, Florida has gotten the benefit of the doubt because of the talent that's on there. How could we be compared to Mississippi State? How could we be compared to Auburn? Honestly, for the first part of the season before you played Texas, you were in that realm. And so my big question is that going to be something that we continue to see? Or is this going to be something that Florida has completely changed? Because if Texas A&M cannot get them off the field, my next factor that's going to be more A&M focused that I think they do not want to let this dictate the game is the penalties. Texas A&M, though top 5 in the nation, they're in the hundreds in terms of penalties. They are a heavily penalized team. Coaches have talked about it. And then in the very next game against Mississippi State, what's supposed to be your best version after a coach has to say it to the media and the public that we're going to have a Cabo fund for every penalty that comes on the football field, then you stay penalized. It almost becomes a problem. Well, it is a problem, but it's more alarming of a problem, especially after the fact. And so what I wonder is if Florida is able to continue the success, the small sample size, but the success in third down, you put the ball into the referee's hands with the penalties, that the last thing you want to do, because this is not a podcast that we're going to sit here and blame the referees for a winner or a loser. What I will blame is if you are a team that puts it into the referee's hands to make that decision. Although they should be more accountable for some of their actions. So in terms of how do I think these things are going to work out? What I like for A&M's side, if I'm picking A&M, what I like about A&M in this matchup is the fact that they can win in a multitude of ways, and they've shown that. It's not just on paper. They've been able to do it. Marcel Reed, I think this is the game that you see his legs be used a lot more. I think this is the game that you lean on to Le'Veon Moss, a guy that has been not injured, but sick. So he's been in and out of the lineup. You've been seeing Reuben Owens more. I think you need more of a physical runner in this matchup, knowing the defensive line that Florida is going to present here. Because I think this is going to be the first secondary that A&M has faced all year that can actually match up with Casey and Craver, We thought Notre Dame was going to be that. Obviously not. Florida's going to be the biggest test since then, because Auburn really wasn't a test and nor was Mississippi State. I also like their defense. I like Cassius Howell. It's going to be a tough matchup against a veteran offensive line for Florida. These are all the ingredients that we really liked in the preseason with Florida that are still present today. If they had gone and gotten smacked around by Texas, we could disregard it, but there is a pulse there in some of the key areas that we really liked Florida. And if I'm picking Florida, I'm thinking the third down conversions are there. A&M's going to shoot themselves in the foot. Some of the passes that Marcel Reed's a little inaccurate on, we turn them into turnovers instead of just an incomplete pass. Some of the stall outs that Marcel Reed has had early into some of these SEC games, we actually have points on the board while not stalling out on our own side. I'm picking A&M to win this football game. Mind you, I'll be at this game. This is going to be the last game that A&M is going to play at home for about 4 weeks, a month if you want to call it. A&M really needs this one just because of how their schedule shapes up. I think Florida eye to eye is going to match them up in talent. And I have a pit in my stomach predicting this game because I think Florida has the capability to make this not a one-night, one-off. But what I do like with Texas A&M is not only do they have an identity, but they've had it for a multitude of weeks. Florida thinks they have an identity because they finally found some success. I don't know if it's something that they can execute week in and week out. A&M's a great test for that. And as A&M enters a bunch of road SEC games, I mean, we're talking at Arkansas with Bobby Petrino in a rivalry spot. That game's always funky. You could disregard that game all you want. I promise you that game's always a little weird. And you're going to have Bobby Petrino. It's going to be at Arkansas. You're going to go to Missouri. You're going to go to LSU and to Texas. Your only home SEC games left on the schedule, to my understanding, is South Carolina, and that isn't until we get to November. And you have Samford at home. Obviously, A&M's going to have some random game like that. So I think the importance from Texas A&M has almost been understated in these conversations. As much as everyone's talking about Billy Napier in Florida and how desperate this program is, I think for the outlook of what Texas A&M wants to be this year, which is different than what we've seen in previous iterations. I mean, 5-0, first time since 2016. They need this one. And I'm going against the grain of what the past versions of Texas A&M has told me, which is to go with Florida in this game. And I'm trusting Texas A&M to get the job done here. I want to take a moment and just say thank you so much. If this is your first time watching the Stadium Pulse, this is a college football show. We're live every Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday. Tuesday is recaps as well as Sunday, while Thursday is more predictions based. We've been doing this for now about 9 weeks, and we've seen extensive growth with the channel. So if it is your first time seeing this face, this mustache, this hat, anything across the board, a like would be very much appreciated. We put in a ton of work here at Crutchman Media, and I promise you it's only going to get better. So might as well make the investment now and sub so I can always pop up on your feed and we can talk some ball together. What do you think about this Alabama-Missouri game? Number 8, Alabama, favored by 3.5 points at Missouri. Number 14 team in the nation. 11 a.m. kick. First thing we have to talk about here is the scheduling dynamics. And if you're a longtime fan of college football, you understand that scheduling dynamics do come into play around this point in the season. I mean, they're always in play, but I feel it the most in October. What has Alabama recently played? They played at Georgia, a night game. It's always an emotional game, a very much charged up environment, regardless of home or away or any context. Then you have to go play Vanderbilt at home, which traditionally, 9 times out of 10, that's a game you could kind of blow off, say, we're going to go beat down on Vanderbilt. We're going to get ready for Missouri. But no, you lost in Vanderbilt last year. College Game Day was in the town. You had Johnny Manziel chirping at your fans. There was a lot of noise. It was more of an emotional win than traditionally a matchup of that caliber would be. And then we dive into Missouri. 11 a.m. kick. at Missouri. Did I forget to mention the following weekend you play Tennessee, your second biggest rival? Another ranked matchup. This would be the third straight ranked matchup. If Tennessee ends up losing Arkansas this weekend, then we could be looking at probably not fourth, but more than likely 4 straight ranked matchups. And all of a sudden you have Missouri just kind of plugged in there. Good old quiet Missouri, a top 15 team that people have acknowledged is good, but really haven't put confidence and conviction behind saying, yeah, Missouri is a college football playoff team. It's been, oh, their schedule is easy, so maybe they could backdoor their way in. Oh, I like Eli Drinkowitz, but he's not like an elite coach. He's a good coach. He's done a good job. Ahmad Hardy's fun. Bo Perbula looks like Penn State picked the wrong quarterback. But there's not a lot of substance when talking about Missouri as a whole. I think this is a trap spot for Bama. It shouldn't be a trap spot, but because of scheduling dynamics, I think it is. This is where I think we find out the maturity of the Alabama program and Kalen DeBoer. What we were worried about potentially with Vanderbilt kind of snatching them by the ankle, I think that spot, that specific way of grabbing a team is more applicable to this. 11 a.m. kick. Missouri's been waiting for this opportunity to prove to the college football public that this team is legit. This is real. This isn't just some logistical bonus of, yeah, we have a good schedule. We're a good team, but it's nothing really of substance. Kind of like how Indiana last year got into the college football playoff. No shade at Indiana. Clearly the program as a whole is good. But I think Missouri's going to test Bama in ways that they don't expect to be tested. Now, first thing we have to account for, if Bama wins this game, I'm not going to be shocked. Bama's favored on the road, understandably so. The defense for Missouri, specifically in that secondary, is not good. The numbers show it. Everything points to Alabama should be able to throw the football. My counter to that is, what if Ty Simpson doesn't have the time to throw? Because I begin to question, more, I want to see if Bama's offensive line is going to handle this test as well as they've handled the previous test before them. Because I think Josh Pate said it best. Unfortunately, his show was before mine, so I couldn't say this, but I had it written down saying, I think Missouri's physicality on both sides of the ball in the trenches is going to test Alabama arguably more than what Georgia did. There's real NFL athletes on the Missouri defensive line and offensive line. True maulers. It's not just Ahmad Hardy and friends. It's not just Bo Perbula, a guy that, oh, he went to the transfer portal. Where did he go? Oh, he went to Missouri. Oh, he's doing pretty well. Good for him. No, they have NFL talent and physicality on this offensive line and defensive line. So we could talk about how the secondary is not good for Missouri. Doesn't matter if Ty Simpson doesn't have time. I also am quite curious, is Bama able to run the ball as effectively as they did against Vanderbilt? That was a counterpunch that they desperately needed to elevate themselves into more of a national title contender, in my opinion, because they can air the ball out all they want, but if they don't have a true counterpunch, a floor to fall back on in a Jam Miller, I'd question a little bit if they could make it all the way. I also do wonder, how is Alabama going to handle Ahmad Hardy? Elephant in the room, best player on the field. How is Alabama going to handle him? Because he's not like a traditional Missouri running back where it's just going to be these wide zones. We're going to stay in the pistol. We're going to try to stretch the field horizontally and try to cut the corner and get downfield. Ahmad Hardy will put that shoulder down, take the wind out of your sails. He will test your physicality. And they had some success at Vanderbilt running the football earlier in that game. And Bo Perbula, I think he's going to be a huge factor with his legs. I say all of this to say, I think Missouri can grab their ankle and yank them back down. Let me tell y'all something. When I made my TikTok predicting this, I had to record it 3 times. Not because of technical difficulties, not because the microphone wasn't working, but more to the fact that I did not know who to go with here. because each time I said Alabama is going to find a way to win this game, there was a part of me saying this was Missouri's time. I could be completely wrong here, but I have played it pretty safe with a lot of my picks. Maybe I want to test the deep end, and who knows, maybe I realize I can't swim. I got to go back to the kiddie pool. But I am going with Missouri to win this game. I think that they're going to own the line of scrimmage. It's going to be a one-night special. You're going to be walking into Missouri Stadium a little sleepy, and I think Missouri is the team that can just snatch your soul if you come in sleepwalking. Now, I will come back onto this channel and say that Bama is probably a top 3 team in the country or a top 3 contender for the national championship if they just go in and dog walk Missouri. Because that would be so impressive. The mental fortitude of these past couple of weeks to go beat Georgia at Athens, to go beat Vanderbilt, a team that was chirping your ear off all week, a revenge spot. You didn't sleepwalk walking into Missouri and then potentially go beat Tennessee. Probably more than likely the most impressive 4-game stretch that we'll see all season. But I want to see it happen, and I'm going with Missouri to beat Alabama. Like I said, we are 22 minutes into this show, and we covered 2 games. Guys, I'm sorry. I like to talk about ball. Now, to be fair, I think there is 3 Big Ten matchups, and this is not a Big Ten SEC thing. I just think 2 of these 3 Big Ten matchups aren't as interesting. I think Ohio State's going to dominate Illinois. Shocker. 2 possession favorites are going to win the game. As much as I trust Luke Altmaier, I think that Ryan Day in this Ohio State program has become kind of immune to these types of games. Very similar to Washington. It's going to be on the road. You're going to have a dynamic quarterback. You have a good coach. But Ohio State's too talented to lose these types of games. They just are. The tier 2s, the tier 3s, they've kind of earned the right. I wouldn't even say kind of. They've earned the right to just get blind faith that they're just going to win and dominate this game. They could end up winning by 10, and you say, well, Tegan, they didn't dominate. They're going to win this game. I'm not going to try to clickbait you, try to trick you. I think Jeremiah Smith's going to have a ton of success because we saw Mekhi Lemon just dominate their secondary. Worst case, it's going to go to Carnell Tate. I think this is going to be the Julian Sayin game. You could see the trajectory of his usage grow week in and week out. And as much as I like Luke Altmaier, I think he's a fine quarterback. Going against Arvell Reese, Caleb Downs, and all of these defensive players, I think Matt Patricia is going to make his life miserable, and I don't think you could run the ball against them. Now, I will say one of my big questions with Ohio State as of right now is there's parts of this team that I don't think has been completely tested. I just don't think Illinois is going to be the one to test them. That could be a conversation for Tuesday. But I just don't see Illinois having a pulse in this game. I think this is one of those, you see it as a ranked matchup, but it's just going to be domination by Ohio State. I also think Oregon's going to dominate Indiana. We could talk about how this is number 3 versus number 7. At the end of the day, this is going to be the difference between a team that can go win the national championship and a team that can make the college football playoff and maybe even win a game. But there's a difference for the tiers for a reason. Outside of maybe quarterback, maybe linebacker, Oregon has the better players across the board. They just do. I would argue they have the better quarterback at home. There's a reason why they're 7.5-point favorites for a top 10 matchup. There's a reason why the hype for this game really, I don't feel like it's super there. I think there's more compelling matchups. I think USC and Michigan are going to be more of a interesting game because at the end of the day, as good as Fernando Mendoza is, as good as Surratt, and all these pieces at Indiana, and maybe they could keep this a relatively close game because I'm not expecting a 3-touchdown blowout, but I feel like this is the game that Oregon imposes their physicality that we have not seen in previous years, where they could basically do what Texas did a lot of last year, that boa constrictor style, never let Mendoza really feel like he's in rhythm, never really have any doubt that you're going to lose this football game. Now, if this was at Indiana, I'd be a lot more compelled to say that maybe Indiana could find a way to win. But Oregon's been dominant at home. They have the more physical team. They have the more dynamic playmakers. They have the better coach. They have this. And I'm supposed to say, yeah, it's going to be a close game, guys. I really don't know who's going to win. No, if I know who the better team is, Oregon should go find a way to win this game. I think this is going to just be Dante Moore lighting it up. Worst case, it's going to be running the football because I think that they're going to get push on this offensive line consistently. I expect probably it to be close for the first couple of quarters, but very similar to what we talked about with Mississippi State and Texas A&M. One of those games where it's going to be close, but at the end of the day, the more physical team, the more talented team is going to break you off, and then the dam is open, and you end up having a 10, 15-point lead, game over like that. This is not a disrespect to Indiana, number 7, but I do think they're slightly overranked. So Oregon, I think you're going to dominate Indiana. And dominate doesn't have to be 15, 20 points. It could be 10 points, but the game never feels like it's in doubt. Michigan and USC. Biggest question here. Can Michigan keep up with USC's offense? USC is averaging about 38 points per game. You know Mekhi Lemon. You know Jordan at running back. You know, I'm blanking, Jacoby Lane. You know Mayava. You know Lincoln Riley. They got the weapons, man. And frankly, Michigan's defense has had some problems in the secondary. I think this is going to be the game where you kind of see both offenses get theirs. But I'm done picking against Michigan. I'm done applying logic with this program. They're going to have to show me. Like, they know they have clear weaknesses. They know they have clear flaws. And at the end of the day, they find ways to win. And when I know for a fact there's one thing in this sport that travels, and it's running the damn ball. Justice Haynes, I think this is going to be his Heisman moment. I think he's going to get multiple explosive runs. I think Bryce Underwood is going to make enough plays to Marsh, because I think that they're going to figure out this offense sooner or later. And what better defense to figure it out against than USC? Everyone's going to point to the fact that A, they ran the ball against them when they couldn't run the forward pass, and B, Illinois was able to run the ball on them, and they're not this elite rushing attack. I think USC's defense has improved. I do. I think that they've made strides. I think that they have the right guy at the defensive coordinator position, but I don't think that they're ready for the physicality that Michigan's going to provide in this game. And I think one of the things I talked about, even though you're more than likely going to let USC score some points, what's going to be the difference if you limit the possessions to where they get to 28 versus 38? Because they're capable of getting to both, but what's the likelihood that Michigan can get to 38 versus 28? It's much less for the latter or the former. It's much less for the 38. You get my point. What I'm trying to say here is, if Michigan can control the ball, prolong these drives, obviously not drop the ball, and run it, and have these 12 minutes, these 8-minute drives, just absolutely limit the amount of times that USC touches the football, make it into a phone booth type of game, they're going to win that because they've done it before. And so I'm done picking against Michigan. This could be the one time I hop off the horse and all of a sudden I get burned. And all of a sudden Lincoln Riley's able to put up a bunch of points. It's going to be a night game. It's going to be a beautiful venue. An important factor here is the fact that Michigan apparently has been able to practice at the LA Chargers. If you don't know why that's a unique or a correlation there, just go look at the head coach for the LA Chargers, Jim Harbaugh, the guy that won a national championship with the Michigan Wolverines. If that's breaking news to you, I don't know what to tell you. But it's important because Michigan traveling to California day early, more accustomed to the time zone. Hopefully they're not going to be as sluggish as what we saw with other iterations of Big Ten teams traveling across country. But that's it for the Big Ten. And honestly, all the other matchups we're going to talk about today. Like I said, we really could do Georgia Auburn. I'm not confident enough on it, though. I do have best bets. We'll do best bets real quick. So for my best bets of the weekend, this is not advice. This is just what I'm taking. We went 1-2 in our first week. Got to be better. 33%, that's not profitable. We missed on Vanderbilt because of the last minute touchdown. Painful. We felt really good about that one. Last minute touchdown burned us. Mississippi State, somehow Texas A&M, a team that doesn't covered 15.5 points. Unfortunate. They could not move the ball. I thought they would be able to move the ball a little bit. They couldn't do it. But we did hit on Texas Tech to cover against Houston. I'm taking Michigan in the points, 2.5. I'm putting money line down. That's what I'm doing. But if you're going to give me the 2.5 points, I'll take that every single time. I just think Michigan's going to be able to make it into a phone booth type of fight, a rock fight, whatever analogy you want to use. I think Michigan's capable of doing it. And I don't think they're going to be as bothered by the time zone change as people are talking. If that's the core of your argument for USC, I'm not with you on that. I'm taking Florida to cover the 7.5. I think they're too talented of a program to lose by multiple touchdowns or multiple possessions. I think it's going to be a very close game. 7.5 is a lot of points, even at Kyle Field. I still think Florida makes it close. I wouldn't even be surprised if they won. And then Pitt to cover the 10.5 against Florida State. I'm trusting Pitt on this one. It's a weird line, especially knowing Pitt and some of the quarterback challenges that they've had. It's seen as a get-right spot for Florida State. But I'm trusting Pitt here. I think that they're going to be able to cover 10.5 points. I still think Florida State's trying to figure things out. Maybe Tommy Castellanos is not as good as we think he is. We could have been a little bit too high on Florida State. I could see that happening. Let's look at the rest of the matchups. We're going to rapid fire this and we're going to wrap up here today. USF versus UNT. I'm taking North Texas. I live in the North Texas area. I would love for them to win at home. Tempted to go to that game, but I don't think I'll have the time. Arkansas at Tennessee. Bobby Petrino's return to coaching is at Tennessee. College football is a funny sport. Now, if this was at Arkansas, I would be very interested. And just to confirm, I'm going to make sure it's not at Arkansas. I believe it's not because last year, last year it was at Arkansas. This should be a get-right spot for Tennessee, especially coming off of, I think last week they played the game against, or 2 weeks ago, they played the game against Mississippi State. I think this is where they try to get their defense right. Bobby Petrino is obviously going to cause a lot of issues. I'll be curious on how their defense responds. I'm going to pick Tennessee in this matchup just because I think they're going to have basically 2 weeks to prepare for Arkansas in this offense. Taylor Green's obviously going to present very unique challenges, but Tennessee I still think has a very good defense, especially at home. It's a good get right for that specific unit. Kansas at Texas Tech. I think this is going to be the game that we really do see Texas Tech stamp themselves as the tier 1 and no one else is in our tier for the Big 12. Still questions about their efficiency on the offensive side of the ball, but I think Jalen Daniels versus this defense, that is must-watch TV. South Carolina, LSU, obviously a rematch of what happened last year. It's in Death Valley. I'm going with LSU. This is a great get-right spot for this offense. I believe LSU's coming off of a bye, if I'm remembering correctly. Am I correct in that? Checking notes. I apologize, everyone. They should be coming off of a bye this week. Yeah, they are definitely coming off of a bye. They played Ole Miss. So this is very similar to Tennessee. Good get-right spot for the offense, especially knowing South Carolina on defense is not that great. Watch out for Dylan Stewart, though, because South Carolina, it's Cocktober, everyone. They have the athletes on both sides of the ball that could win football games virtually anywhere. Dylan Stewart could wreck the game. Stellars, if they click and both have those types of games that we know that they're capable of, including Nick Harbor, LSU is definitely on upset alert there, but I'm going to pick them to find a way to win. Georgia at Auburn. This was the game that I was potentially going to preview. I think Auburn's going to beat Georgia. Feel gross about it. This is primarily because it was a preseason pick. That's part of the reason why I didn't want to preview it in detail, because a lot of it's just based on the fact that I made this pick in the preseason. I just think that they're going to find a way to win. Jordan Hare at night. They're going to have one of those nights where it's just a one-off. The offense actually clicks. It works. They've been capable of doing that under the Hugh Freeze era. They're coming off of a bye. There's a lot of different factors working in favor of Auburn here. I'm going to ride with the momentum. Arizona State at Utah. This has been a terrible place for Arizona State to win at. I think Kenny Dillingham finds a way, and I think they have the better offense. Utah severely disappointed against Texas Tech. I expect Arizona State to win this game, but wouldn't shock me with Utah, especially Arizona State coming off of more of an emotional win against TCU. Utah could definitely win. It's a tough place to play. I think it's the last game at night. I'm trusting Arizona State to find a way to win. And I think one of the more interesting matchups is going to be Nebraska at Maryland, just because Dylan Raiola traveling across country against the talented freshman at Maryland. That game, I'm going to lean Nebraska to find a way to win just because I like their defense, but wouldn't be shocked if Maryland, especially with how close they pushed, I believe it was Washington last week, to potentially find a way to win there. I apologize. I keep saying find a way to win. But like I said, guys, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 games that we talked about over the past couple weeks. I promise you, this is all we're going to ever do. College football, year round. This is the Stadium Pulse. My name is Tegan Randolph. You know, if I haven't earned your sub now, I promise you, next time I pop up on your feed and we talk some more ball, I'm going to get your sub sooner or later. It's going to happen. Might as well do it now. But with that in mind, thank you guys so much for watching today's show, and I will see you guys next time.